It's another wonderful episode on the program Politics Today as we take our time to look at the nitty-gritty about politics, what's happening in the country and the state, and of course looking at what is happening beyond Nigeria. We understand that a lot needs to be done in terms of getting it right in our electoral process, and for us to do that, it's always expected that developing polities will mimic the features of developed polities. By that I mean looking at the U.S. elections, for instance, the electoral process, what basically are the features that Nigeria will learn lessons from as regards the electoral process is what we will be kickstarting on this program today. And we're looking at the American elections and, of course, how it can impact positively the Nigeria's electoral process. My name is Philip Omo-Gyupon. I'm discussing this vital topics with me. In the studio, I have at my extreme, at my immediate left, I have a clergyman and, of course, a seasoned legal practitioner, Barrister Greg Iyayi. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Philip. Good morning, viewers and listeners.
And next to Greg is another very, very erudite legal practitioner in the person of Emmanuel Obapolo. Thanks for coming, Emmanuel.
It's a delight being here. Good morning, Philip.
All right, as the show progresses, we will also be opportunity to enjoy the presence of another public affairs analyst, and we're going to be doing the announcement in the course of the program. So basically, let's start with the U.S. presidential election, and I think your first bit will be on what you see as features that the Nigerian electoral process should benefit from in terms of the American election. Great.
Yeah. I think identity politics, that is tribal politics, where you come from and your region, your tribe, we had more to learn from it because unfortunately the Democrats, they concentrated much on identity politics, race, ethnicity, and all that. And they felt like they always do that they were going to benefit from that. But eventually that did not happen. And then also the result of the election in the US has shown that, you see, politics is performance. Because Donald Trump was running on his performance when he was first president. All he needed to do was to recount the secured border, economic prosperity, common sense, then peace worldwide, and respect for the US. And he just ran on that. And then inflation, he told them that inflation was at its lowest, 1.4. But at the time in Biden's time, it was 9%. Although it has gone down now to about between 5.5 and 6.
All right.
So, I mean, if you're a politician, performance, when you are given an opportunity, you know, if you win an election, deliver on the promises that you made during the period of campaign. And that's why people were ready to believe Donald Trump. Despite the fact people said he was a racist, he's a criminal, he's this, he's that. At the end of the day, Americans, you know, voted for him. And we are told that this has been the most consequential election in the last 129 years. And the trifecta victory, that is getting the electoral, getting the presidency, getting the Senate, getting the House, that is something that has not been seen for a very long time. And the margin with which he did that, you know, he won the electoral, he won the popular vote, and he won the electoral vote.
Yeah.
So very resounding. And then the so-called 7 swing states that can, on their own, just determine the outcome of the election. He swept all of them. So despite all the harassment and everything, it's a very wonderful lesson for us. Trying to destroy your opponents is not necessarily going to ensure your victory, because he was even now seen as a victim. And people started sympathizing with him, those who might not even have sympathized with him. And he swept to victory.
Okay. I think outside that, there are also a number of factors that can also be explained about the electoral process in America, in as much as you spoke about performance, which is quite an important feature. Again, transparency of the polls also come in. So let's get your thoughts on this, Emmanuel Obakwalo, because it's one thing for us to have a popular candidate and able to, impress the electorate. We know basically that in America we have electoral process whereby it's not the citizens that vote directly, as in not just, they don't consider the popular votes alone, they also consider, a collection from the electoral college. And so what you see as a very, very important, feature of the electoral process outside the popularity of Donald Trump that was able to sweep this poll, that could also be a lesson for Nigeria to learn from.
There are so many things for Nigeria to learn from with respect to the just concluded elections in the United States of America. For instance, we saw the principles of true federalism played out. And we also saw the tenets of democracy. And what are these? We saw free, fair, and credible elections. And when you talk of democracy, as it was defined by even an American, we saw it coming to play, where the people are the determinant factor of who governs them. Unlike what we see here, where we see antagonistic religious and ethnic sentimental elections. That's what we have here. Over there, you saw during the campaign was bordered on issues that affect the average American, not issues of attacking the political parties or attacking individuals, aspirants or candidates of the various political parties. No, that was not what we saw. As you know, the electoral body in America is almost not known. The electoral body in America is almost not known because you cannot really, the persons who make up the body are not as special as the persons who vote for those who are to emerge and to govern the people in America. That is what we saw. Unlike here, where the persons who are in the electoral body are even more important than the citizens, the electorate themselves. And you see bogus money meant for, or budget for elections, like we have here in this client. Over there, you won't hear all of this nonsense. And we saw the process in particular. Even before Donald Trump was declared the winner, the CNN had already declared him winner. Even before the body declared him winner.
Exactly.
The CNN had already declared, because the process was transparent. The process was what you will call sane society. And I think that is what we need to learn here. We have a lot. Like I do say, we have not started in this part of the world with respect to elections. First, if you talk elections, you must first talk about the political parties. How do their candidates or aspirants emerge? That is one germane factor that affects elections. How do they emerge? Do they emerge by one godfather just sit somewhere and point his finger at one person and say this person automatically becomes our aspirant or our candidate, as the case may be? So all of these factors borders on how you arrive at a free, fair, and credible elections.
Okay, basically, I'm also looking at what are we not doing right as a country?
Yes.
Because we look at the features of the developed polities like America election, for instance, and you don't see the incumbency factor, playing on the electoral process. A situation where Joe Biden being the president, outgoing president, didn't bother or couldn't even have an influence on the electoral process that will bring churn out results in a different or in another outcome. Now, how do they really impact this that make it possible for even the electoral process to be as transparent as ever? And how can we have that in our electoral process in order for us not to have undue interference from, organs of government?
I think the over-centralization of the electoral body, because some people may not know, in the US, every state has its own election laws. Although there are common features in all the states, but the details of election, the laws for them are made by each of the states. That is why in a state like Pennsylvania, you see the senatorial race up till now, one of the seats has not been declared because it takes many days to count, both by machine and also manual counting. So, but in Nigeria, everything is centralized. We are supposed to be a federal system, but we are not really a federal system. The Secretary of State in each of the states is the one that handles election matters. Unlike here, where everything is federalized. So I would, the powers given to INEC, they are too much. And I think that is one of the reasons why there's an abuse, because INEC almost has absolute power. Just like my learned colleague has said, you see, from the polling stations, you can monitor the results of the election. And as soon as it gets up to a point where even if the other candidate gets all the remaining votes, it's not going to change the result, they just call it. Sometimes they are still counting, but result has been called. So it's not a question of coming to change figures from this, from that, and so on. The press is there, the agents are there, and all of. I'm not saying that all of American elections are foolproof when it comes to fraud, because there are people who are fraud inclined in election. They're in every clime. But the system or the process can completely eliminate the ability of those people to have maximum impact on the election.
Okay, you made mention of the federal system of government we operate here. That is not true. Now, do you think that is actually the problem? Because even if we say we have a true federal system where the state has its own powers without undue influence from the federal government, as in the center, we also have issues where states conduct local government elections and they declare the entire local government areas as solely for one party.
Let me tell you.
I think we still have a problem of not having transparent polls enough from undue influence of the government.
I agree with you. The centralization from the federal also goes on in the states. Okay, why is it that when elections are done and the results are tabulated, that the result cannot be declared unless by one person, and that one person comes out and declares a different result from what everybody has seen? That is the issue. And why would they transmit the result directly to the portal for everybody to see? That they will have to come, they will have to do collation, they will have to do this, and then one person will have to announce. And that person can just announce anybody and then tell you go to court.
Okay.
You see, that is, and when they tell you go to court, my learned colleague will have some work to do.
All right.
So this is the problem. The electoral body, they should be umpires. They should be neutral. INEC is one of the biggest problems that we have. And I think they can resist the influence of politicians. And then I cannot imagine a situation where they will tell you, announce this result when you know that that was not the result. And then allow the results right from the polling stations, to be reflected, and then people can just tabulate and they even know who has already won.
All right, thank you, Greg. There is need for us to look at the electoral process and how transparent it is. Because if you have a transparent, electoral process, it will give room for less disputes. And basically, you won't have issues, dominating our courts over litigations. But we're going to be taking a short break, after which we will dwell on the judiciary and what it impinges on the electoral process in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. Still, while we had a break, we were opportunity to be joined by a public affairs, a political analyst, and who is a former SSA to the governor of Edo State on community and youth development, talking about Collins Osagai Amadi. Thanks for sharing this stage with us.
Philip, good morning, viewers.
All right, while we had a break, before that, we were on the U.S. presidential election and how the electoral process, could also benefit Nigeria's electoral process, most especially as we seem to have challenges and glitches in our transparent polls in Nigeria, although the election is ongoing. But we look at the presidential election and what it came with, and the less disputes or almost no dispute about the result that panned out. Can we have that in Nigeria's electoral process?
Yes, of course, we can have it. Former President Jonathan, to a very large extent, set that pace for us, to which we expected others to have consolidated, not just only at the center, even at the regional elections. I mean, local government elections, state elections, and what have you. We expected growth at that level. But quite unfortunate, with the system we have in Nigeria, other party fees, when we give it out, will be shut out for a period of time. And there may not be any opportunity, either to eating from government money or carrying contracts. Based on that, the pressure on whoever is there not to allow things sometimes go well also now came in, where you now see an extra pressure to say, no, it must go one way or it must go a particular way. But the American election have also shown that it is possible, because one, America was at the brink of almost collapsing. With the attitude in which Trump invested into their governance. And for those who were truly patriotic, all they could do was to see how they can reheal the American system, putting aside their personal interest. Because even before the election, if to the election, Trump's attitude to the election ordinarily was like, if I don't get it, heaven will fall. At the time he was telling his supporters, get ready, get set to fight, you must take it by force if it doesn't come, and all of that. There were a lot of inciting statements he made. But for those who really hold America dear, they understood that if they play the way this man wants to play it, it may not go well. But they allow the system as usual to run itself. Even when Trump became advantageous, like he was winning, yes, they were ready to give it, and that you saw the game. The president congratulated him within a jiffy. The incoming, the vice president, which was the candidate, Kamala, did the same thing.
Exactly.
That was statesmanship.
Exactly my point.
Now I'm coming.
You've gotten to the point where I want you to respond to, most especially as it pertains to having less or no dispute about the result. Now you could see Kamala Harris, congratulating the president-elect Donald Trump. Now, can we have that in this climate where we have less agitations, where we have, the electoral process not being unduly interfered with by the incumbency factor?
Now, let me tell you, with one very ugly spirit that have engulfed the Nigerian citizenry, majority, if not all, is the fact that anything that makes you lose, the system didn't go well. Even when it went well, sometimes we feel we are always the most qualified. We are the perfect person. Sometimes not the way you go. When Harris came in, when Biden stepped down for her to come in, you saw the support she got. Within 4 or 5 hours, you saw how many millions in dollars that went into the account of the campaign council for how, to work on our elections. And the primary was almost a done deal to very many persons in the world that she has already won. But Americans didn't see it that way. Voters didn't see it that way. Yes, at that level, they gave her that support. But when it came to the re-election, they were looking at a lot of issues. American foreign policies, yes, has Biden and Harris able to do what America is known for or are known for, that was left for the voter. Then when it comes to job creation, how are the Americans faring as at that time? Many felt the poverty in America has gone high with over 65% since the Biden government came in, which was still a global affair, which we have been crying. It wasn't just Nigeria. You saw the way the voters voted there. They were voting based on hunger, and Nigerians here, for example, are still referring you to America, that America is an Eldorado. What we are trying to say is that these were issues. Sometimes electorate does not want to really want to hear.
Okay.
The one that concerns them is, let my life be a little bit better.
Okay.
And you saw the way it all went, that when Trump was there, economy was better for them. There were kind of more jobs, and life was not as miserable as they felt. And that was why they voted for Trump. And Trump,
Thank you.
To Trump's greatest surprise, Trump never imagined that they will do it the other way at this time.
Thank you, Collins.
By congratulating him.
Thank you, Collins. A lot we must talk about, but I think we're going to give it some segments, and we can't finish everything. We can't show all today on today's episode. But if you take your mind back to the clip that was played, about the American election, you can hardly tell if that was a polling unit. If we can have those clips again on the screen, where we had, people taking part in the process, the technology, the devices were given, and they did that neatly without any rancor. We didn't hear of any ballot box snatching or aspects of, fighting or using guns to, intimidate voters and, of course, the opposition. It was all neat, and you could see even the elderly coming out to vote. We want to have that sample here in our electoral process, where we have the elderly even coming out, participating, dominantly in the electoral process. But let's look at the judiciary. Basically, we hear situations or insinuations or expressions even coming from the #1 citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for instance, where he said, if those who are aggrieved basically should go to court. It's ideal to say that, but the impression being generated from that statement is like the court has been bought over. Even if you go to court, we can tackle that aspect. So how can we redeem the judiciary from undue influence? Emmanuel.
I think you just want to ambush me, but I'm up to the task. It's unfortunate that today, in this part of the world, particularly in Nigeria, under the leadership of the All Progressive Congress, is the first time the phrase "go to court" has come to stay. And it beats me hollow to see that at this time in the existence of this country, where we think that from 1999 to this period, we ought to have developed, because even the politicians will tell you that it is a nascent democracy. And the question I ask, a child of 25 years old, would you call that person a child? I don't think that person is no longer is a child. Because if you have a child 25 years ago and the child is still creeping, you will be bothered and start asking yourself what is really the problem. And that is the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria. Today, the judiciary, without due respect, has been pocketed. And that is why you see those who make the phrase "go to court" do it with all boldness, and they feel that nothing can happen, because they see that even the electoral body themselves, they will collaborate with them to see that some of the facts and figures that will aid the proper investigation and to evidence that something really went wrong with the electoral process is hidden. So with that, you see that the judiciary itself needs independence from the hands of the executive. And that is why we say until judges are appointed by a kind of a private or a special body who will do the screening and ensure that the judges are appointed in consonant with the principles of the legal profession.
Yeah.
Until then, we may not have what we are dreaming about.
Okay.
Because just now, we still see that even the appointment of judges is done by the executive. Then too, the salaries of the judges, we just saw one just now. Somebody a minister, the minister of FCT is telling Nigerians that I want to build houses for judges, this and this, and you know, before you know, he begin to boast how he has the judiciary in his palm or in his pocket and all those kind of nonsense. We are not saying that judges don't deserve houses, no, but it shouldn't just be the one that here we are in a system, in a government that has dealt harshly with the people, to the people of Nigeria, with respect to its principles and policies that it has implemented, and yet you are now saying that the proper thing to be done now is to build houses for judges, so that by 2027 you still have the zest to tell us go to court.
Okay, well, you're talking about executive influence and how that can be really pinned upon to change the narrative. Yes. Let's get your comments on that. Is there a way out?
Yes,
in 1 minute.
There's a way out. I feel that, particularly the Supreme Court, the apex courts, they should actually exert some positive influence on the lower court. Because if you look at, even in this last U.S. presidential election, a state like Colorado and 4 other states wanted to take Trump off the ballot box so that his name will not even appear. But the thing went from court to court, and then the apex court now said that a civil servant, a government civil servant, cannot just on his own or her own take the name of a candidate off the ballot box. And sanity was actually restored, because the states that were run by the Republicans, we also say, okay, we will take off Biden's name from the ballot box, and there would have been chaos. So the apex courts, they should exercise some measure of independence, sanity, and discipline. Because if that discipline flows from the head, and you know as a judge that whatever judgment you give is likely to be reversed, you know, and you are going to suffer a setback in your career if every time your judgment goes on appeal, it is overturned. It is overturned. So the Supreme Court should rise up, do the needful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.